Then again, Nintendo has been a little bit slacking on remakes. I wouldn't say slacking, but generally just not 100% faithful. Zelda fans that are watching this and listening will know what I mean. Of course, I'm referring to Ocarina of Time 3D and Majora's Mask 3D, which were both remakes for the 3DS. And although I did not play Majora's Mask on the 3DS myself, I am pretty well aware of the changes that were made on the 3DS version of Majora's Mask. I'm gonna say it right now, I am lucky to have played the original. I did play Ocarina of Time for the 3DS, and there were some things in there that they changed, but I don't remember anything overly negative. I don't remember it being too unfaithful. As far as I remember, the only thing I didn't like about the Ocarina of Time on the 3DS is the fact that the Dark Link fight in the Water Temple was heavily nerfed. It was heavily nerfed, like to the point where it wasn't even a challenge anymore. Dark Link was so easy on the 3D version of Ocarina of Time that to be honest, it took away from how I remembered the original. The Dark Link fight was really difficult on the N64 version of Ocarina of Time, and subsequently the GameCube port as well. There was I believe there was no changes made to like the port to the GameCube. I remember that being difficult and actually liking how difficult it was. It was, I admit, it was frustrating, but it felt so rewarding once I figured out how to defeat him, or just like you managed to figure out like a way of defeating him. There are multiple different ways you can beat Dark Link in the Water Temple in the original. And then when I played the 3DS version, although I was still technically just a child, I can't remember if I was a teenager yet then. I don't even remember when the 3DS version came out, but when I got there, because it was many years later since I had played the original, I distinctly remember the Dark Link fight just being like easy, like so easy. You could do it normally. You could fight him normally with your sword and shield and not find too much difficulty with it, which is fine. Like that is a legitimate way you could defeat Dark Link in the original, but it was harder. It wasn't as easy to hit Link. You actually had to use your brain a little bit in the ways that you would attack Link with your sword and shield. Like you couldn't just spam it and hope to get a hit, but in the 3DS version you could do that somewhat and get away with it. Onto Majora's Mask remake for the 3DS. Yeah, as I said earlier, I didn't play it personally. However, I did see playthroughs and that infamous video that is played everyone's recommended feed. I am positive that Zelda fans listening to me right now will know exactly what video I'm talking about. And I probably only need to say one thing. Moon. And you'll probably know what video I'm talking about instantly. I did watch that video because it was in my feed like every day until I watched it and then it went away. Like YouTube really wanted me to watch that video, so I caved and watched that. And then I learned all the differences between Majora's Mask 3DS and the original, and I don't know, I guess I was not happy like with it too. Like so much was changed. Like all the boss fights were changed. All of them. Every single one of them was changed. I think the only one that was a good change was probably the fish one, in the Lake Bed Temple. That one was changed. I did actually kind of like where they went with changing that boss. The second phase of the boss being underwater was pretty good thought on Nintendo's part. So So props to Nintendo on that. I will give them that. As bosses as a whole, I thoroughly dislike the fact that they decided to put an eyeball on every other boss, which doesn't make sense. Like Odolwa has an eyeball that just spouts out of his back of his head. What? This doesn't even make sense as well for a mechanical monster like that goat to have an eyeball pop out of its ass for a weak point. Like, what? Back to Odolwa again. They changed in the 3DS version the way you beat him. Like there's only one set way to beat him, and that was go into your Deku form and go into a flower and pop out, and that stuns him and brings his god-awful eyeball out. Like, what? The original had so many different ways to beat Odolwa. Like sword and shield, Deku form, bow and arrow, yes. Anything your mind could think of at the time, it was an intended way to beat Odolwa. It's unfortunate that Nintendo took that away in the 3DS version. Like, those methods of killing him were physically locked out. Like, you could not do them even if you wanted to. Like, Odolwa would just have immunity to Link's sword and shield, or immunity to the bow and arrow, immunity to the Deku Link's bubble attack, immunity to Deku Link's spin, which usually stuns enemies. I cannot fathom the reason why Nintendo did that. Because I think one of the critiques from Majora's Mask when it first came out was that the difficulty bar was a little bit higher than standard Zelda games of its time. But I think that was a plus in my opinion. But obviously Nintendo took that criticism to mind when they made the remake and dumbed down a lot of the bosses and certain things. I just hope if there's ever a remake for Ocarina of Time or Majora's Mask for the Switch, that they be faithful to the original. Twin Mold, okay, that's the one I haven't mentioned about. I like the fact that the boss wasn't as boring. In the original, the boss would just literally just fly around the map and do no attacks to you whatsoever. I do like in the remake that they altered it a little bit, so that after you got rid of one of them, then the attack patterns and direction of the boss fight changes a little bit. That change was alright, but it's muted by the fact that Link's transformation into Giant Link is basically him becoming a MMA player with like 1 centimeter of range in where they punch. Like, what happened to Link being able to use his sword and shield in giant form? And as well, don't get me started on the fact that every time the last Twin Mold dives back into the sand, it resets its health. It resets its health, so basically after you've done all that damage, if you let it go back into the ground, it just resets its health again. And it's not obvious either that it's doing that. You can literally Google how to beat Twin Mold 3DS, and there's an entire search list for questions and answers for it, because it was just not an obvious boss fight. Speaking of boss fights, boss key right there, boss chest. I don't know what they were wrong with the Majora's Mask remake. There's one more thing. That's the Zora swimming. The Zora swimming existed no more in the 3DS version. You could be cool as a Zora when you get the Zora form. You know, swim around and actually feel cool and feel like a Zora. But on the 3DS version, no, we're just gonna take you away and give you Link's normal way of swimming. You know, you can't swerve around corners or do tricks in the water. No. Oh, what's that? What's that? You have to spend magic to be able to do that now? Oh, okay, I see. But yeah, the Zora swimming was like this. Was exactly like this. At least that's the way, this is the way it felt as well from what I saw. There was no spinning like this, or anything like that, or fancy swimming as a Zora would swim. There was no elegance to it at all. Yeah, and I think that's all. That's my little rant over. I think I have anything more to say about Majora's Mask 3D remake. But if you guys do agree with me, you know, let me know. And you know, I'll be interested to hear you guys' opinions on that. I'll be interested to know why you don't agree with some of the things and why you do agree with some things as well.